Hello and welcome to Insights to Opportunity. I'm your host, Carlicia Wright, Director of the Mayor's Office of Business Opportunity. As a part of Mayor Anise Parker's vision to create a competitive and diverse business environment in the City of Houston, this program will provide information on contracting opportunities, events, and resources that educate, connect, and grow local, small, minority, and women-owned businesses. Today we brought in the Houston Galveston Women's Business Center, who provides support to entrepreneurs in education, scholarships, as well as matchmaking with corporate contracting offices. Additionally, they are committed to inspiring and empowering women who want to start or expand their business. Under the Obama administration, the WC is funded through the U.S. Small Business Administration. Here to talk with us today is April Day, Director of the Women's Business Center. Welcome to the program, April.
Thank you very much, Carlisa. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So can you talk a little bit about the evolution of the Women's Business Center here in Houston?
Well, like you said, it's funded through the Small Business Administration, and how it started is really us identifying that there was a gap in service delivery for our small businesses, especially those that are women-owned. And coming out of our host institution, which is the Women's Business Enterprise Alliance, and most people know it as WBEA, the third-party certifier for women business enterprises, our director noticed that there was sort of like a missing middle, if you will. And what she wanted to do is look at when women get their certifications, what happens after that. And what we realized were there were some small businesses that were just starting that weren't quite ready for the certification phase, and if they weren't ready for the certification phase, then they weren't really ready for the contracting piece. But we know that that is beneficial to building, and so we wanted to help that population with technical assistance. The second piece is we noticed that there were companies that were existing that maybe were getting certified, but then didn't stay certified, so we had an attrition. When we looked at what's going on with the women business enterprises, we realized that sometimes their businesses needed assistance with growing and sustainability. And there we go, the inception of the Houston Galveston Women's Business Center.
And I remember that was just about a year ago.
I know, it's our anniversary.
So it's your anniversary. You've been around for about a year. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the benchmarks have been in the first year?
I think our most favorite benchmarks have been just really helping women businesses get started and launched. And we do that by making sure that you have the proper technical assistance through training and one-on-one consultations with developing your business plan, getting your management sections together, making sure that you've got a strong marketing plan, value propositions, and pricing model so that when you do go after those corporate and government contracts, you're armed and you're ready. The other piece that we were excited to do was help individuals create strategic alliances. So let's say you're a small women-owned business, but you wanted to do something a little bit bigger. How do you partner up with another small business? And then third, our most favorite, is we launched our very first ever small business and leadership conference on Galveston Island at the San Luis, and it was amazing. And so we truly appreciate the City of Houston's support and help there, because we couldn't have done it without the corporations and the City of Houston's support, and then also the support from Galveston Island. So we were excited to really launch that endeavor this year.
Oh, no, that's great. I mean, those are some wonderful benchmarks. Now, for, the small business that may not necessarily be owned by a woman out there, they're interested, can I gain access to the Houston Galveston Women Business Center services? Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Everyone can gain entrance into the Women's Business Center. And it's not just for women, it's also for men. But pretty much we have a very simple intake process, and the services that we provide are those trainings and consultations that you need to help launch, grow, and sustain your business.
Now, talk a little bit about, you talked about the services and some of the benchmarks. Talk about how would you gain access to the Women Business Center, and how do I find out about it if I'm a business and I'm watching the show?
Well, you can go to our website, and it's www.wbea-texas.org, and you can click on the Houston Galveston Women's Business Center link, and there you can look at all the calendar events that we have, the trainings, and also book a consultation with one of our advisors at the office. The other way is you can simply email me, and it's aday@wbea-texas.org, or give us a phone call at 713-681-9232.
Repeat that for us again, April.
713-681-9232.
And I think that some of our listeners are going to want to email you directly. Can you give us that email?
I sure can. It's aday, and that's ADAY, at WBEA-Texas.org. texas.org.
Now, once a person contacts you, tell us a little bit about the intake process. Are there certain criteria, certain businesses, certain sizes that you're looking for?
It's really not certain businesses, certain sizes. It's pretty much the desire to launch, grow, and sustain your business. And the intake process is a one-on-one consultation session with one of our advisors, and it really depends on where you are. But the first piece is doing the client intake, and then we look at where you are in your business and kind of create a pathway, if you will. So if you are launching your business, then the first place that we guide you through is your business plan. The next place we look at is your marketing plan, and then we look at your access to resources. Just this year alone, we've had 3 businesses that really needed some of that startup money, and then 2 businesses that really needed some money to help them continue to grow and create jobs. And we were able to get them funded through 2 of our biggest supporters. I don't know if I can say that on air. Can I say that on air?
You can say that on the air, April.
Well, 2 of our biggest supporters is with Wallace State Bank and Axion, and they've been very engaged in the process of helping us get access to funding to our small businesses that are not only launching, but those that are existing and want to expand their business as well.
Now, the Women Business Center also offers scholarships. Talk a little bit about those scholarships and what those scholarships can be used for.
We're very excited about the scholarships because, as you know, we are funded through the SBA. So basically we're a nonprofit, and so as people come in for some of our program services tied to training, there's a small fee for some of them, and what we do with that fee is we're able to turn that into scholarship money. Then we also get donations, and so the scholarships that we provide are either for the classes that we have. We also provide scholarships to the entrepreneur program within HCC. And then we provide scholarships if they want to go to any of the business resource centers in Houston that have a cost and they just don't have the money to do it. We recognize that with small businesses, sometimes their financial situations are strapped. And keeping a keen eye on your cash flow is critical at any level in your business. So we want to mitigate that financial restraint toward finding access and getting your business launched and growing.
No, that's great. Those scholarships are really helpful for those small businesses. So have you seen an increase in number of companies that are looking to start a business in Houston?
Oh, I think everyone is looking to start a business in Houston. I was just looking at some data on where we stand in terms of the revenues for women-owned businesses, and we've increased that revenue in the Houston area, and you're probably familiar with this, but of over 90%. And so there is a strong influx of people starting businesses, and what we also like to see is that people are trying to grow their business and create jobs, which I think ties into what you guys are trying to do.
Thank you so much, April. It was so great having you on the show. I wish the Women Business Center luck, and I look forward to ongoing partnerships.
Thank you so much, Carlisa. It was a pleasure.
Coming up next, we have Houston Business Development, Inc. to talk about the services and resources that they have. Welcome back to Insights to Opportunity. One of the major challenges small businesses face is the lack of capital. Our next guest is the best kept secret in Houston, Marlon Mitchell, President and CEO of Houston Business Development, Inc. HBDI is a non-for-profit organization designed to help small businesses that need help when a bank may not be able to. Marlon, I want to thank you for coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit more about HBDI, or Houston Business Development, Inc.
It's a nonprofit corporation that was established back in 1986 by the city of Houston, in fact. If you'll recall, Houston back in 1986 was at the peak of economic recession. So a lot of small businesses weren't able to access traditional sources of capital. And the city decided that they wanted to create a revolving loan fund to be able to assist small businesses, particularly those that were operating in underserved communities that didn't have access to capital. So we were born, if you will, in 1986. We've sort of evolved since then, spun off from the city in 1993 and became a separate 501c3. And our mission is to help stimulate growth, revitalize communities, and create jobs, and a supporting, nurturing environment for small businesses.
Well, no, I mean, that sounds like a lot. So let's just get right into it. What does that mean? You're stimulating growth for small businesses. You got money?
Yes, we do. And that's one of the things that we want to try to change, this best kept secret notion, and let people know that we're a resource that's available. When banks say no, we can say yes. We can make loans anywhere from as small as $5,000 up to as much as $5 million in a program that's affiliated with the SBA. The 504 program. But our purpose is to stimulate growth, and the way that we do that is we make expansion capital available to small businesses that might not otherwise be available from the private sector. Those businesses grow and expand and create jobs.
Absolutely. So you've got these loans for businesses. I mean, does it take a day, a year, a month? So talk about the different types of loans and how long it takes a business who's...
Yeah, we can make loans anywhere from $5,000, as I said, up to $500,000 under what we call a revolving loan fund. And we have different types of programs, different tiers. A fast track program, for example, is an expedited process, as the name would suggest, fast track. We can process that loan in 3 days. So somebody comes in on a Monday, they'll have financing by Wednesday. It's typically for working capital, for furniture and fixtures. It's designed to replace the high interest rate credit cards that people have a tendency to want to use. We also have a small business loan where we can make loans anywhere up to $500,000 for working capital, furniture, fixtures, equipment, real estate. Very attractive interest rates, very attractive terms. And that's another difference between our organization and a local lending institution, is that we're more flexible in terms of how we structure deals. And then we have what we call the SBA 504 program, which is designed for businesses that are owner-occupied, that want to purchase real estate or heavy equipment. We can lend up to as much as $5 million anywhere in the state of Texas.
No, I mean, that sounds great. Now, one of, small businesses, they go through a lot of trials and tribulations just in the nature of doing business, and oftentimes their credit is not what it should be.
Yes.
So is there any advice that you can give to businesses? Is there just something that makes HBDI different than a bank?
Well, again, we are different from a bank. All banks will look at the proverbial 5 C's of credit: cash flow, collateral, credit, conditions, as well as capital. And rather than try to elaborate on each of those, one of the most important factors is character. And so we look at the character of individuals. If we can get comfortable with who you are, how you handle your trade obligations, your credit, then chances are we can work with you. Even though you may not have a stellar credit history, if we can get an explanation as to what may have caused that, if there are blemishes, if we can get comfortable with that, then we can still work with you. We'll look at all of those C's, but we'll look at each one and weight them.
So you look at all the C's, and so in some cases, do you have similar structures to a bank? Do you have to put up capital? Or?
Yes, very similar to a bank. We're no different from a bank in terms of how we underwrite. We're going to look at your debt-to-worth ratios, your debt-to-income ratios, debt coverage ratios. We'll look at all of that. But at the same time, we're a little bit more flexible in terms of how we underwrite. We're not regulated by the Federal Reserve or by the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, or the FDIC. We're a non-bank lending institution in that we don't take deposits. Our funding comes through the City of Houston, in part. also funds that we generate internally, and then other organizations, other nonprofits, foundations, and what have you.
Now, do you work with banks? I mean, since you're a non-bank technically, is there sometimes that you refer your clients to banks, or do you have some type of partnerships with banks?
Yes, we work very closely with banks. Most of the regional banks as well as community banks we have a relationship with in doing what we call a tandem loan or a companion loan. Someone goes to a bank and the bank looks at it and they just can't get comfortable. It's marginal. And so we help mitigate the risk that that bank might see in that transaction by taking a second lien on collateral, by reducing the interest rate on the loan on our portion. It increases the cash flow of that business. So what we try to do is to make sure that that business is a viable business. And if we can mitigate the risk that the bank sees in the transaction, that borrower can still access the amount of capital that they need. So we work with banks in tandem loans. We work with them through the SBA 504. That program requires a 50-40-10 split. 50% provided by the bank, 40% provided by ourselves, and 10% by the entrepreneur.
Okay.
We don't compete with banks. Our role is to try to work with those businesses that banks have typically found difficult to work with, and then mitigate the risk that the banks have in those marginal transactions.
Now, you're saying, a lot, and it still might sound a little intimidating for a
Sure.
small business owner. So talk about, I think it would be helpful to talk about some of the businesses that you've helped, unlikely scenarios, or folks who might have not thought that they were, they were able to get a loan.
Sure.
Can you give some examples?
Typically banks have industries that they're more prone to make loans within. Restaurants being one that they typically shy away from. But if you look at our portfolio, we probably have 33% of our overall portfolio in restaurants. So we make a number of restaurant loans and those loans that banks will find difficult. Startup businesses. Typically you won't find a bank that will make a startup loan, but we'll make a startup loan if someone has a detailed business plan, relevant industry experience, and as well as up to 33% of the capital that they can invest in that business. And so again, where you find that the deals may be difficult for a bank, we typically will come in and work with that small business.
Now, can you give any advice to a small business before they come into HPDI for services? What do they need to just get started?
Well, probably one of the most important things is your credit. You can actually go to annualcreditreport.com and pull a credit report from each of the reporting bureaus. And that's something that I would advise. Know what your credit is and then address the different blemishes or any concerns that you might have beforehand. And then when you bring a package, make sure that that package is detailed. Most lenders have to take 30 or more days to actually package a deal and take that time in underwriting because it's piecemeal rather than bringing a complete detailed package where the T's have been crossed and the I's have been dotted.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mitchell, for coming to the show and sharing HPDI services.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up next, we're going to put the proof where the pudding is. We're going to have one of HPDI's success story and a recipient of an HPDI loan. Welcome back to Insights to Opportunities. I'm your host, Carlicia Wright, Director of the Mayor's Office of Business Opportunity. Earlier today, we talked to the President and CEO of HPDI, one of the best-kept secrets in Houston. Well, we found someone who knew about the secret, Alan Bergeron, a franchise owner who owns Denny's and 2 Shipley Donuts here in Houston. Thank you so much, Alan, for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, Alan, can you talk about a little bit about the services that HBI helped you with and helped your company with?
Yes, actually, I was a startup, and I was looking for funding to open up my first Shipley Donut shop. I'd located a place, and I was going to build a building. I was going to have to buy equipment and everything else. But as a startup, the banks were hesitant to look to me for that type of assistance. So what Marlon Mitchell's group did at HBDI is they provided secondary funding. It was a tandem loan with Unity National Bank. Unity provided the funding for the purchase of the land and the construction of the building. And what HBDI did was provide the funding for the equipment and the signage. Now what that did is that allowed the SBA, who was insuring part of that loan, to kind of look at what HPDI was doing, sort of like equity that I was putting into it because of what their relationship with the bank and how they were going to be guaranteeing part of that loan. So although I did have to come up with some of the money myself, I didn't have to do as much on my end as far as personal financing.
No, that's really great. It sounds like without the HPDI that you might not have been able to start this franchise.
Oh, absolutely, because what they did is they took a second lien position behind the bank, and that made the bank more comfortable in loaning the money. So it worked out really well for me.
So let's talk a little bit about your franchises and how you got into the business and how you knew you were going to be a franchisee of Shipley Donuts and Denny's. Tell us a little bit about the history.
Well, actually, I have a degree in business, and when I was in school, I never had the idea that I would be a business owner. I thought I was going to go and work for some large corporation, work my way up the ladder, and then retire on a pension one day. The bug hit me somewhere deep into that journey, and I decided I wanted to own my own business. I was a pharmaceutical salesman, and part of my territory was Galveston. I was driving around thinking that one day, there are going to be bigger businesses here in Galveston. What could work, and what should I look into doing? And something hit me about a Shipley Donut shop. I had no restaurant experience. I felt it was something that I could learn. I was not going to inherit anything. I wasn't an apprentice in a print shop or anything of that nature. And so I started pursuing the Shipley Donuts, thinking that it was something that I could start in the restaurant industry at the ground floor and then work my way up. So that, in a nutshell, that's how it got started for me. I decided to Shipley Donuts as opposed to Alan Bergeron Donuts because I had no experience. Plus, I needed someone to help guide me through what it took to own a business, and franchises do that for the most part. They provide you with the recipes, the techniques, the trademark, and the recognition that's needed for someone to place a business in an area and to attract people to come into it.
Now, Alan, you make it sound so easy to, to start a business, to start a franchise and run a franchise. Can you talk about some of the challenges or unique challenges that a franchisee might have and some of the things that you've, I guess, overcome in time?
Sure. I think sometimes owning a franchise has some misnomers connected with it. You still own a business. I'm responsible for the payroll, for taxes, for making sure all the bills are paid, and operating a small business just as anyone else. It just so happens that with a franchise, I have to pay a fee for the use of the name and the trademarks and recipes that go along with it. Whether it's Shipley Donuts, Denny's, or some McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever, if you walk into a McDonald's and order a Big Mac, for example, in Houston, it's got to be the same in Bangor, Maine. And so there is a commitment that the company makes for the consistency. And so I have to be aware of that every day that we're in operation. We can't deviate from that. But that's what the customer expects. And so I don't know if I'd call it so much of a challenge as opposed to just what is required of me as a franchisee.
Now, Alan, you're not just a successful franchise owner, you're a successful certified company. And so most companies out there, business owners that own similar businesses to yours, they don't normally think of the city as a place to get certified. So can you talk about the value of certification and why you're certified with the city?
Actually, my certification came almost by accident. I was approached to deliver donuts to University of Houston. One of my donut shops is across the street from University of Houston, and the gentleman who was the general manager for Aramark at that time came into the shop and said, "Hey, we want to do some business with some local folks. Would you be willing to deliver donuts?" And so within a week, I bought a van and bought some racks, and we started delivering donuts to some location, University of Houston. University of Houston, of course, is a state-run institution, and it was of value to Aramark that I was a certified DBE. And so I started my process back then. And then I started delivering to other institutions at the time and currently. Also, I have a donut shop in Bush Intercontinental Airport, and the city requires that there is minority participation or DBE participation at the airport system, and it became of value to the concessionaire that they do business with vendors like myself that was certified.
So can you talk a little bit about your experience? Have you feel successful? I mean, working at an airport, it's different. It's got its own nuances. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yes, I always said that the airport, doing business in the airport is a completely different world than it is on the street. Just simple things like you don't have to worry about cleaning restrooms. You don't have to worry about security. You don't have to worry about getting robbed because it's, that's not going to happen behind the security field. But you also have to be concerned that all of your employees have to pass an FBI background check, and the airport isn't close, and so therefore you may have to provide parking. Typically, the employees at the airport make a little bit more money than they do on the street also.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's our show today. Please join us next time to learn more about the opportunities with the City of Houston and other government agencies on Insights to Opportunities. I'm your host, Carlicia Wright, Director of the Mayor's Office of Business Opportunity.